Welcome to Austin, Texas, the city that went from a rugged frontier outpost to the live music capital of the world, and now a global tech hub. But how did this happen? Today on History Love, we're uncovering the history of Austin, Texas, from Native American tribes to the Keep Austin Weird movement. Stick around because this story is wilder than you think. Whispers beneath the hill country, the soul of Austin. Long before Austin pulsed with music and innovation, this land bore silent witness to stories etched in the bones of time. Over 11,000 years ago, beneath the vast Texas sky, the ancient Clovis people carved out their survival amid mammoths and shifting ice, leaving behind a legacy buried in the earth at the Galt site. Millennia passed, and the Tonkawa people called these hills home, their lives entwined with the rhythm of the rivers and the whispers of wind across the plains. Comanche riders and Lipan Apache bands traced their paths through this land, guardians of a wild, untamed heart. Then came the Spaniards, hopeful, weary, devout, who in 1730 raised a Catholic mission by the banks of the Colorado, only to vanish months later, their dreams drifting south to San Antonio. The soil of Austin remembers them all, the ancient, the native, the wandering, and even today if you listen closely beneath the city's hum, you can hear the echoes of those who lived, fought, prayed, and vanished, leaving behind the soul of a city still being written. From wilderness to Waterloo, the birth of Austin. In the wild heart of 1830s Texas, as the Colorado River carved its path through untamed land, pioneers pressed westward, their wagons creaking with hope and fear. Spanish forts dotted the nearby horizons of Bastrop and San Marcos, silent sentinels of an earlier empire, while central Texas stirred with the winds of revolution. With blood and fire, Texans fought for freedom, and in 1836, they tore their destiny from the grip of Mexico, birthing a fledgling republic with bold dreams and fragile roots. Among its visionaries was Mirabeau B. Lamar, a man shaped by the hunt and the land itself, who gazed across the hills and waterways near present-day Congress Avenue and saw not wilderness, but a capital waiting to rise. It was a place where buffalo once roamed and ancient paths crisscrossed, a natural crossroads of nations and dreams. In 1839 they named it Waterloo, but that name would not last. In a breath of reverence and ambition, it became Austin, a tribute to Stephen F. Austin, the father of Texas. From the soil of struggle and the spirit of revolution, a city was born, rooted in liberty, destined for legend. Blueprints of destiny, building the heart of Austin. As the Republic of Texas took its first uncertain steps, a city began to rise from the raw earth, guided not only by vision, but by the steady hands of dreamers and draftsmen. Appointed by President Mirabeau B. Lamar, Edwin Waller stood on the banks of the Colorado River, gazing between Shoal Creek and the stream that would bear his name, and began to carve order from wilderness. With courage and compass, he and his team etched the Waller Plan, 14 blocks of purpose, crowned by Congress Avenue, stretching proudly toward the future home of the Texas state capital. It was more than just lines in the soil, it was the heartbeat of a new nation, pulsing with the promise of government, learning, and identity. On August 1, 1839, as 217 lots were auctioned to hopeful settlers, a city was born not with fanfare, but with grit and vision. That modest one-story capital on 8th and Colorado would give way to marble and grandeur, and Waller's grid would form the spine of a capital destined to lead. In those first footsteps, Austin began to rise, not just a city, but a symbol of the Republic's daring dreams. War, wilderness, and the will to stay, Austin's fight for survival. In the shadow of frontier fires and the clash of empires, Austin's fate teetered on the edge of erasure. The year was 1840, a time when Texas was still raw with revolution, and the land echoed with the cries of conflict. The Texas Rangers fought fiercely against the Comanches in the brutal Council House fight and the Battle of Plum Creek, driving the native resistance west and opening the gates to a wave of settlers. Travis County was born, and with it, a fragile hope. But that hope met fierce opposition in Sam Houston, who loathed President Lamar's dream of a capital in the untamed wilderness. Twice, Mexican forces threatened San Antonio, and Houston seized the moment to strip Austin of its power, declaring it too vulnerable, too distant, too wild. Government officials, weary of the journey, fled. More than half the population followed. Fear hung thick in the air, of Comanche raids, of Mexican reclamation, of isolation. But when Houston tried to steal away the heart of Austin, the Republic's archives, the people rose. They stood their ground in the face of abandonment, defying the archive war with a message carved in stubborn pride. Austin would not be erased. Though its streets emptied and silence fell over its unfinished buildings, the city endured. And in 1845, with the stroke of a pen and the vote of a nation, Austin was named the Eternal Capital, and Texas became one with the United States. From chaos and near collapse, Austin was forged in defiance, its soul sealed by those who refused to let it die. Chains broken, tracks laid, Austin's rise from war and ashes. By 1860, nearly 4 in 10 souls in Travis County lived in bondage, their lives tethered to the brutal rhythms of slavery. Yet when the drums of civil war thundered across the South, Austin's heart beat differently. Its people, along with others in Central Texas, voted against secession. But war has a way of bending even reluctant cities to its will. As Union threats loomed, Austin sent its sons to Confederate ranks, and the city braced for the unknown. Then came Juneteenth, 1865, when Union General Gordon Granger proclaimed freedom in Texas, and with that thunderous promise, thousands of formerly enslaved people poured into Austin, birthing new communities like Wheatville, Pleasant Hill, and the enduring Clarksville, the oldest freedom town west of the Mississippi. These neighborhoods rose as sanctuaries, built with sweat and hope, even as a wounded city tried to rebuild. By 1870, African Americans made up more than a third of Austin's population. Soon, iron rails carved through the hills, the Houston and Texas Central Railway in 1871, followed by the Missouri, Kansas and Texas line, transforming Austin into a booming trade hub. Cotton and cattle flowed through its veins, with gins and trains bustling downtown. For a moment, Austin stood as a gateway to the future. But the 1870s brought fierce competition, as railroads snaked through richer farmlands eastward, and neighboring towns claimed the crown of commerce. Still, Austin endured. Born in conflict, reshaped by freedom and driven by dreams of progress, the city pressed forward, scarred, resilient and rising. Stone, shadows and struggle. Austin's tumultuous march into the modern era. In the twilight of the 19th century, Austin surged with ambition, its dreams rising in stone and steel. In 1881, children stepped into their first public school classrooms, and Tillotson Institute opened its doors to black students hungry for knowledge and dignity. 2 years later, the University of Texas began shaping minds beneath a sky still wide with possibility. By 1888, the new Texas state capitol stood tall, a colossus of pink granite and pride, the 7th largest building in the world, proclaiming Austin's place at the heart of Texas. The city swelled, tripling its size, stringing streetcars across new districts, and installing moon towers to illuminate its nights. But progress came with peril. In 1900, the Colorado River rose in rage, obliterating the city's first granite dam and leaving dreams drowned beneath the floodwaters. Still, Austin pressed forward. In the 1920s and 30s, civic pride ignited a wave of beautification. Parks blossomed, infrastructure grew, and dams were raised along the Highland Lakes, backed by New Deal dollars that lifted the city even as the country staggered through depression. Yet beneath these shining achievements, shadows grew. A system of racial segregation, cruelly calculated and deeply entrenched, divided Anglos, African Americans and Mexicans by law and custom. Deed restrictions chained neighborhoods and racial lines, and black and Mexican families were pushed to the margins, excluded, restricted, and silenced. Austin, for all its grandeur and growth, was a city divided, one part rising with pride, the other forced to rise in resistance. Rising waters, rising rhythms. Austin's transformation in the 20th century. By 1940, after decades of devastation and hope dashed by floodwaters, Austin finally tamed the Colorado. The shattered granite dam was replaced by a hollow concrete one, forming what is now Lake Austin, while the mighty Mansfield Dam upstream created Lake Travis, securing the city's safety and future in one bold engineering feat. Yet even as oil wealth poured into other corners of Texas during the early 20th century, Austin watched the boom pass it by. Once the 4th largest city in Texas, it slipped to 10th, left in the shadow of gushing wells and rising fortunes elsewhere. The Great Depression further dimmed its prospects, but Austin endured, slowly reclaiming its momentum. As the decades turned, the city stirred anew. By the 1970s, Austin had transformed into a thriving metropolitan hub, a mosaic of cultures with a population increasingly diverse in its Hispanic and Black communities, yet still grappling with its divided past. The University of Texas soared in stature, and from its classrooms and labs came the sparks of a high-tech revolution. But it was music, raw, soulful, and defiant, that became Austin's beating heart. In smoky halls and dive bars, legends like Willie Nelson and Stevie Ray Vaughan forged a sound that echoed across the nation. The Armadillo World Headquarters became a sanctuary for rebels and dreamers, And soon, Austin city limits and the South by Southwest Festival would make the city a global stage. From concrete dams to concert stages, from hardship to harmony, Austin had found its rhythm, a city reborn not just in safety but in soul. From its days as a tiny settlement on the Colorado River to its place as one of America's most dynamic cities, Austin's history proves that sometimes, the weirdest places become the most legendary. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of Austin, Texas, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more city histories. And tell us in the comments, would you move to Austin? Thanks for watching and see you in the next episode on History Love.